Welcome to Pro Cycling Bet's Top 10 Sprinters Tour de France 2023 edition. Who's going to take the most number of stages of this year's Tour de France? Are there enough stages for Cavendish to be able to claim his 35th victory and take the most number of wins at the Tour de France from Eddie Merckx? We all want to know. Suffice to say, according to PCS, Cavendish isn't even in the top 10 sprinters headed to the Tour, which makes a lot of sense given his rather abysmal form lately, lack of sprint train or combination of both he's shown in the early season. His recent win though, at the last stage of the Giro, seems to have cured everyone's mind of that though. Not PCS though, and not us. We're not silly enough to fall prey to recency bias. Said us never. We're human. PCS isn't though. That being said, this ranking has a bias in the fact that PCS will lean to promote riders who have raced more this season. So sprinters like Biniam Gourmet, who just recently started their comeback, props to him, nice fourth at Brussels Classic, after a nasty sprint crash in the spring, won't be making this list despite their caliber. Sprinters should stick around to at least stages 8 or stage 12 of this year's tour, depending on how good they are at hill climbing. Stage 9 has Puy de Dôme on it, and it's not the toughest climb in the book, but not every sprinter can climb like, say, Pederson did in the Giro. Stage 13 has Grand Colombière, which is a classic Tour de France climb, and we wouldn't blame the sprinters for heading home on that day as well. We also want to know if anybody has their favorite sprinter because of their victory poses. After doing research for this one, it was we have our own personal take for who has the best victory pose, and we'll let you in on that. But on with the show. We were told by multiple people that we need to do these backwards to build up suspense, so we're doing just that. Coming in at number 10 is Wendel Fanart, 28-year-old from Jumbo-Visma, well known around the world compared to other sprinters on this list. Potentially the best all-rounder in the peloton today, if you count cyclocross as well, but otherwise Pog's got the upper hand on him as well. Apparently Pog has done some cyclocross though at the start of the season as well, so maybe best Wout van Aert there too, who knows. Regardless, Wout van Aert coming to the Tour after a strong classic season, despite Woutgate and gifting that stage to Christopher Laporte. Seems like he's had a nice couple weeks off and should be coming into form nicely for the Tour. Wout van Aert will likely be targeting the green jersey again, and winning sprints helps in that regard. But if push comes to shove with Vingegaard and Vingegaard needs his aid, then Wout van Aert will most likely have to place his Jumbo Domestique's duties above La Malheur Vert. Not the worst thing, as he could just become a stage hunter at that point and win even more sprints. Coming in at number 9 is Brian Picard, 31 years of age, from Cofidis, a French team. They may not have the strongest team, specifically the strongest general classification contender going to the Tour, but that could prove to be their benefit, to be honest, allowing them to focus on winning stages, with Picard and Geschke trying to do a repeat of basically winning KOM of the non-GC riders. Picard has fared rather well this win, taking 3 wins, finishing second twice, few top 10s. Picard did the Vuelta last year instead of the Tour, having last completed the 9 stages of the Sprinters Tour de France, also known as all the stages the sprinters could do before the hills came. And we mean, he's French, so we're going to give him a 10% boost to his stats, especially on the first day when the French come out in numbers. Coming in at number 8 is Jordi Musch, 24-year-old from Bora. Why is Bora bringing 2 sprinters to the same tour? Don't ask us. Are they going to swap every day? Who's leading on who? Probably not going to work super well, given that being a solid lead-out bay like Danny Van Poppel isn't the same as being a top sprinter. We'll see Bora's strategy when the action kicks off, but we're honestly still a little surprised. Throughout the entire season, Bora has actively tried to ensure the 2 Mears and Bennett programs don't overlap, and so we're unsure why they're sending both. Should be interesting. The Belgian though has performed well this season, never quite managing to nag the top slot other than a 1.1 race at Circuit de Charleroi-Wallonie, but given that it's a 0.1 race below World Tour and Pro level, we're not lending much weight to that. He tried to prove us wrong today by coming in hot at Brussels Classic, 1.pro race, but he snaked second. He lost to a competitor further down this list. Recently, at the end of April, he managed to pick up 2/3 slots at the Tour of Norway. Didn't have the stronger start list, but early in the year he had a couple of podium finishes at Volta Algarve, and his big 2 world stage races, Tirreno Adriatico and Santos Tour Down Under, he didn't really perform superbly, so we're not really on for him. Coming in at number 7 is Sam Bennett, 32-year-old Irishman, also on Bora. Bora's second hotshot. He's been performing better than Mears, in our opinion. This year, Bennett's had 1 win, the first race he did for the season at Vuelta San Juan, and he followed it up with a 4th and 3rd directly after, and then a 2nd place finish on the penultimate stage of that race. Since then, he started to drag his feet a little, but not by much. Bennett's followed up his performance at San Juan with a strong UAE tour, narrowly missing out on winning a stage twice, and then at Paris-Nice stage race, He almost secured the first stage and was in the running for it on the 5th, but he never managed to take a win. Overall though, on the stages where sprinters could perform, he's almost always ended up on the podium, which is what we like to see. So if we think Bora can actually figure out who is riding for who, Bennett could prove to be a hot commodity in those bunch sprints. Coming in at number 6 is Caleb Ewan, 28-year-old Australian on Lotto Destiny. He is quite small but quite powerful. We'll be wondering if he'll be wearing that distinctive black helmet with white dots he wears, or is it white helmet with black dots? We can't remember. Regardless though, it's distinctive and you'll be able to pull Caleb out from the crowd. We bet that Caleb also hopes that he can pull himself out from the crowd, specifically the sprint crowd. We were concerned with Caleb's performance early in the year, but he's been coming into supreme form later in the season. Could just be peaking at the right time. It could be that he got sick from all his kids at the start of the year and that screwed up his training plan. He started decently still though with the 2nd at Tour Down Under, and he was in contention for a few stages. He also got the short end of the stick, or the short end of the bike, if we dare say, at the first stage of the UAE Tour, where the photo finish was 100% equal between him and Tim earlier, but the race commissaires clearly didn't want to have them do a 1 kilometer sprint as a UCI rule state for a tie, and just gave it to Tim earlier instead. Ewan's had recent decent performances at Tour de Hungary, finally a win at Van Merkstein Fence Classic, followed by a 2nd at Ran van Limburg. So we're excited to see if he can translate his recent form to the Tour, and at worst, he can lead out Cavendish for fun. Coming at number 5 is Arnold Demar, 31-year-old Frenchman from Groupama FDJ. Groupama is coming to the Tour with an incredibly promising team with the likes of Pinot, Madouas, Gadu, Kung, and we're really only seeing one domestique of Vignettes, and we're like, is he gonna pull the entire stage? We guess if Kung is time trialing though to save his contract, he'll probably help out after that. And if Pinot's not too worried about his pregnant cows and sheep and not wanting to battle with Gashkar for King of the Mountains, he'll probably throw in a pole or two for Gadu. But we're getting sidetracked a little bit, because who's gonna lead out Demar? Probably Kung. We'll see. If you have thoughts, please provide it in the comments. Should prove to be interesting though. Just as interesting though is Demar's recent year. He seems like he's been slowly building and getting up to speed. Looks like just in time for the Tour. Demar had a weak showing at the Tour down in UAE at the start of the year, but he's since then been in the running in a few sprints at Pays de la Tour, and has a standout performance at Boucle de la Mayenne, winning a stage and being in the top 6 in all of the other stages, taking the green jersey to boot. Today, at the Brussels Classic, he managed to secure the win against strong competition, defeated number 7 Jordi Moose on the line, and he looks solid for the Tour, especially as a Frenchman with that 10% boost. Coming in at number 4 is Fabio Jakobson, 26-year-old from Soudal Quick Step. The 26-year-old Dutchman has had a strong showing at least once in almost all the races he's entered this season. He's achieved a win at his 2nd race of the year in San Juan, and he followed that up with a 2nd and 4th later in the stage race. At Volta Algarve, he got 4th at Tirreno Adriatico, a win on stage 2, and at Tour de Hungary took the win also on the 2nd stage. Coming in at number 3 is Mads Pederson, 27-year-old from a Little Trek. It used to be Trek Sigefredo, but they just changed on July 1, the Little Trek. Boy oh boy though, Pederson has been having a season, and not only that, he's shown he can climb, surviving until stage 13 at the Giro. The stage they had to modify due to extreme weather, in air quotes. Really, that they modified it because the guys were tired, apparently. We're being slightly facetious, but there is a lot of gray area that needs to be dealt with respect to the CPA voting process, in our opinion. And while the Giro didn't have a strong sprint crowd, he did manage to win a stage, along with a 2nd, 3rd, and 2 4th place finishes. Pederson has had a strong showing at each of the sprint classics he's attended, which cannot be said for everyone else on this list. Pederson finished 4th at Paris-Roubaix, 3rd at RVV, 5th at Dwars d'Or, 5th at Gent-Wevelgem, and 6th at Milan-San Remo, which is an impressive palmares already, but to top it off, at Paris-Nice stage race, he took a stage at each spot of the podium respectively, so 1st, 2nd, 3rd at some point during that race. At his first stage race of the year, Tour de Gard, he took a win and 2nd on the first race of his calendar year. Coming in at number 2 is Dylan Groenewegen, 29-year-old from Jaco Alula. What can we say about Groenewegen other than this Dutchman is fast when he gets going? Groenewegen has won 5 Tour de France stages in his career, but we're sure he'd like to take even more as a newly minted 30-year-old. His birthday is on the equinox, June 21st. Groenewegen took the points jersey, a stage, and a few of the top slots at the Sprinters Tour de France. aka Saudi Tour, aka the Echelon Tour, Groeneweggen's first stage race of the year. Groeneweggen followed that up with a win at the UA Tour against strong competition and almost always being in the running for every other potential sprint stage that followed. At Tirreno Adriatica, he narrowly missed taking stage 7, being just behind the next sprinter on this list. Strong highlight was finishing 4th at Châteaubriand, which is known as the Sprinters World Champs. Groeneweggen's more recent performances have looked strong as well, with a first on stage 1 of Tour de Hongrie and a win at the Vinidal Classic. Finally, what you've been waiting for, number 1, Jasper Phillips, 25-year-old from Alpecin de Koenig. Hands down, this man has the best winner's pose. It cannot get much better than this. The man, the myth, the legend, but not quite. Philipsen has had a superbly strong season though. He may not have completed a whole bunch of races compared to his competitors on this list, but as Matteo Jorgensen said in a recent interview, being close doesn't matter, and that is true, especially for our bets. And if you're concerned about your bets, then Philipsen is your man. When it's possible for a sprint and he's in the running, he has achieved a podium in all but one event, narrowly missing it at Dwarsdorp Vlaanderen and finished 4th there. Otherwise, he's had 4 wins, one being at Châteaubriand, the World Champs for sprinters. On top of that, he's finished 2nd 3 times, with one of those coming at the renowned Paris-Roubaix. And the results have been at high caliber events too, with high caliber competitors like at Tirreno Adriatica, a World Tour stage race. Yeah, we'll give a shout out to Cavendish as well. He didn't make this list, but we want to satisfy the English-speaking audience who's probably only heard of him and potentially Ewan on this list, maybe Bennett, but that's more likely to be because of the kerfuffle with Patrick Lefevre in the media in the past years. At the end of the day, though, we do hope Cavendish picks up his 35th win and solely takes the records on his shoulders rather than Merckx. This newer era of cycling needs a new champion sprinter, in our opinion, even if he's headed out the door in a few months. Cavendish has proved remarkably adept at squeaking into potentially close wins, despite the lack of a lead-out train. Cease Bowl is going, though, unlike the Giro, and we hope the two of them can finally work their kinks out and that Cav is flying. Or maybe Kwiatkowski can take the reins from G and lead him out on the final day. Who knows? Overall, though, we hope you enjoyed the video. Please comment, like, subscribe. We're happy to talk about who you think are the top sprinters, because this list definitely isn't true to form for the best sprinters who are headed there. If you have any improvements you want for us to try, we'd love to hear them. If you listened this long, thank you so much for listening. Ciao.